What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben, and welcome back to another episode of Ben Builds with Joe. This is episode number 3 on our A6M3 Model 32. And today, guys, I'm really going to focus on rescribing the rest of the aircraft. Now, last episode, I talked a little bit about how I approach rescribing an aircraft like this. Talked about raised panel lines, how to remove them, how to mark them up, and then how to rescribe. I've got my Dymo tape ready to go. I've got my Tamiya extra thin cement ready to go. I've marked all of the panel lines over the entire aircraft. And luckily for me, there aren't too many. There's a couple here and there that are going to be a little tricky, but for the most part, I think this should go over without a hitch. Now I've got my Dymo tape, like I said. I'm going to actually take that tape and I'm going to be cutting it in half. So I'd have longer, thinner pieces, so I can go ahead and get those around some of the contours of the fuselage. But for the most part, this should be a pretty straightforward rescribe. Nothing too fancy. Now, I don't normally rescribe aircraft, and in this case, I don't really have to. I just wanted to go ahead and challenge myself to see if I could do it. So this will be a lot of fun. So I've got my ruler. I'm going to go ahead and slice up this Dymo tape right down the middle, creating 2 smaller, thinner pieces, and then we'll go ahead and start scribing and sanding and getting this thing looking beautiful. Now, also, after the rescribe, we're going to shift over to the cockpit, and I've got a surprise for everybody. I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about what my plans are for that. But before we get into that, let's go ahead, get this thing rescribed. Fingers crossed, this goes over well, and we can get this thing looking sharp. All right, everybody, so we have finished our rescribe. It took quite a few hours here. I cut it down for you guys because, honestly, it's pretty boring. So we have completed the fuselage and the wings. We're all done. And luckily, the lines here on the fuselage, they line up. So like here, the one on the top that goes across the back of the cockpit area, that lines up. And the bottom side as well lines up. So pretty nice. Now, one thing I'm curious about here is on the wings, here at the wing fuselage joint, it looks like the panel line should actually extend a little bit past that seam. I don't know for sure. I'm going to have to look back through some references and find out, but we might need to just drop those in real quick. Shouldn't be that hard to do. We'll check where the seam line actually ends. We'll go from there. But that should be a pretty easy fix if we need to go ahead and add those seams in. Otherwise, the bottom of the wings look great. And also the top of the wings too. I took it nice and slow, one line at a time, worked from the wingtip into the fuselage. We're great. Ailerons also looking stellar. We are done with the rescribe. Now, the only thing that we need to worry about now is are there any other parts that need to be rescribed? And in fact, there is one other part, and that is the drop tank. I don't know if we're really going to be using this drop tank. I do have an extra drop tank that comes out of my A6M2N kit. We might just swap them out, but for right now, we're not worried about it. So let's go ahead and move on to the cockpit now. The cockpit itself is lacking a little bit of detail, and one of the kind of sore spots in the cockpit is the instrument panel. The instrument panel is really just a flat piece of plastic with a decal over the top of that. That's not going to fly for me. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to go ahead and cast a new instrument panel out of clear casting resin with a silicone mold that I created using a spare part that I had out of another A6M3 kit made by Hasegawa. Now, Hasegawa cockpits are actually pretty sweet. So we're going to be using the instrument panel from the A6M3 Model 32 Hasegawa kit as a mold and a basic design for this one. And what I've done here is I've actually made a silicone rubber mold of the instrument panel from the Hasegawa kit, and we are just going to basically make one out of clear resin. Now I'm also doing some work here with silicone and with resin over on my All at Sea group build. So go over there, check that out if you're interested in a little bit more detail on this. But long story short, we're using actually a 2-part 50-50 mixed clear casting resin with UMU 30 silicone rubber compound that we've created this mold out of. This should be about a 24-hour dry time, maybe a little bit less since it's such a small part. We're going to just go ahead and make sure we don't have any air bubbles in there. We're going to set it aside. We're going to let it dry for 24 hours. Then I'll come on back and I'll show you guys what I come up with. Now, what I've learned so far with this casting resin is it's actually pretty decent. It is not one of those really stinky resins. You know, this is a very low to almost no VOC. So I honestly have to say this is pretty good stuff. I'm liking what I've got here. This is by a company called Art and Glow. I picked it up off Amazon. So honestly, for casting things like this, I think this is going to be pretty nice. Again, this is my first time casting anything this small. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this is going to turn out well. If it doesn't, oh well, no harm, no foul. But if it does, hey, I got myself a new mold and I can cast as many A6M3 instrument panels as I want. So that's pretty cool. All right, we're ready to go here. We're going to put this aside and let this dry for 24 hours. We'll come on back and I'll show you what we have. All right, guys, it's been 24 hours, so here we go. Check this out. Not too bad. Very clear. It's a very clear piece. So I got to tell you, the Art and Glow resin can really cast very nice, very clear parts. So I'll zoom in here for you and you can kind of see what we're working with here. Honestly, it has a very clear effect. I like how it looks. So let's go ahead and pop it out of the mold. Since this is silicone rubber, this should actually pop clean out without much of a problem. So you can see here we have a completed mold, no damage there, and we have a clear casted instrument panel right like that. I honestly have to say the level of detail that we've achieved out of this little rubber mold, not too bad, looking pretty decent. So this is going to be perfect. I think we're going to let this all kind of set off to the side while we jump onto the cockpit, cut out some parts and pieces, cue the time lapse, and just see what we have to work with from here on out. All right, everybody, so we have the cockpit more or less kind of planned out. We've drilled out all the seats, so the seat's done. We have to make some belts. We have to go ahead and figure out how we're going to install the resin instrument panel into the cockpit. But I think we're looking pretty good to go ahead and call it quits for today. This is a really nice kit. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I know Joe is cranking away on his, and it's looking awesome. Next episode, we'll come on back, and we're going to try to finish off this cockpit. We're going to try to paint it up. We're going to add some piping. We're going to go ahead and figure out how to put that instrument panel into this cockpit. And we're just going to go on and have some fun. If you have yet to subscribe to Joe, drop over to his channel. Check out his videos. I know he's doing a lot of awesome builds. And we will see everyone back here on the next episode of Ben Builds with Joe. So until next time, everybody, go out, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. And we'll see you back here on the next episode of Ben Builds with Joe. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.